Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. I think we're still in the eclipse sandwich. We'll get to that in a second. I'm not sure I know what I'm talking about, but join the Patreon if you can. We got $3 level. You can get the card of the day and one class. For $5, you get 2 extra episodes of Paranormal Karen. For $6, you get the card of the day and the episodes. And then for $10, you just get the 4 classes. And for $15, you get everything, which is way too much. Paranormal Karen or karenrontowski. Everybody, today my guest Mothmana Alien is here. I don't think I have talked to you in, could it be like 3 or 4 years on this podcast?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I don't know how to keep track of time, and it's not real anyway. So
thank God it's not real, because I'm aging rapidly. You and Alyssa came to my show in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and we had a blast. And it was just great seeing you in person for the first time.
Yeah, it was really wonderful, and it was a fun adventure too, because we did not have any details. We were just going off of your directions via text message, and we drove up into a very rural part of Massachusetts I'd never been to, and then down a dark road to a yacht club.
And that's my life. And it's funny because people are always like, where's the show? And I'm like, I'm not sure. It should be somewhere in that city. Drive around that city and ask people if they've seen me. And the booker is the same. He was like, it's this yacht club, no more. And then I think he told me 8:00. And then he was like, it's 7:30 that day. And I always just fly in at the last minute. I go, I figure GPS will know where it is. So we did find it. And even right off the bat, there was a weird, Massachusetts is just weird. There was a weird, there was like a spirit in there, and then there was some weirdness in the water. Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah, toward the end after your set, which was amazing, by the way. I've never seen someone light up a room full of older folks quite as much as Karen does with paranormal comedy. So that there was a table in the back that was stoic during the first set and then couldn't keep it together immediately on yours, which I just think is fantastic. But yes, there was a weird energy in there. It wasn't, like invasive. It was like you, me, and Alyssa were talking, and then we were gathering spiritual attention, and there was a dragon in the river, and there were no yachts. Mm-hmm. There was no yachts.
It was a rowboat club.
Yes.
Yes, and there's a legend with the thing that's in the river, isn't there?
I have no idea.
Okay, but both of you were like on separate thing. You're like, there's a lizard or there's a dragon in the right behind you. I had my back to it.
So what you might be interpreting as a legend was more of just my observations and I've spent a lot of time during the weekends at various places throughout southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, and northern Massachusetts. And for some reason, it's not just me, it's not just Alyssa, and it was also someone else I spend a lot of time with who's like, why is there a dragon in this river?
Yes.
And it came up, I've never mentioned that to Alyssa before. It was so funny because she's like, there's something in the water. Is it a weird dragon thing? And she's like, yes, a dragon. And not like a fire-breathing dragon, more of a serpentine Loch Ness monster. I'm saying the word dragon because that's what my brain associated it with, but it's more of a vertical serpent with a very bendy spine, you could say.
Yeah, almost a Loch Nessy feeling to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that I wonder what the physics of that is. If you're a being that moves through water, that is what you want to look like, right? I would say the up and down motion.
I would say so. And it's funny because, you think of the pictures and the illustrations of Nessie, and then I think of, the visual, like the mental image I'm getting. Because again, I didn't literally see a dragon. It's just more of a psychic impression. It's like, well, why would you pick this river if you can't fit in it?
I know. Or I wonder if it fit in it at one time and we ruined the river, or maybe too many yacht clubs. Maybe it was just a yacht club member.
Maybe. That would be a wonderful yacht club member. Like the kids would probably love it.
I think so. And their little charcuterie paper plates were very good. I consumed so many. I drove home that night like 4 hours. I drove 4 hours straight, got home at like 4 a.m. and it was a long night, but I was late because I was enjoying sitting talking to you guys. Okay, so I do remember the last time I did talk to you, we were talking about the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. And this is something that I have not seen. There's kind of a podcast. It's not a true podcast. It's a podcast about stories about the Bridgewater Triangle. And it's that there's a portal in there or something, and it comes back after so many years. And it was good until they started to get into there's a lot of griping children in it. But anyways, but I am unfamiliar. The Bridgewater Triangle, that's kind of like just a big area that has everything in it, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's one of those funny paranormal hotspots because I'm from the West Coast. I've only lived in New England for about just over 2 years now. And so when I spent most of my life up and down the West Coast, or when I lived, I lived in England briefly, it was just, I've heard about it. It's a thing that comes up a lot. It has a similar reputation that one might ascribe to something like the Bermuda Triangle, there being a specific landmass area with perceived boundaries that a lot of bizarre, horrific phenomena is reported to have happened in. And so that's pretty much what I knew. It's one of those places where you have stories and accounts that basically have everything, but from like fairies to Bigfoot, hauntings, literal murders, all sorts of pretty much anything that you could think of. You could probably find some sort of story, whether or not someone's making it up or it was a real thing they experienced, you'll probably find it. And what's funny, so like this has always been a thing in my head. And then one day I was going, I think somewhere up north in eastern Massachusetts. And I remember I was driving and I was like, what? Bridgewater? I'm in the town of Bridgewater. And there's a gas station. And then I realized that I was in the Bridgewater Triangle just from the signs on the road. And I was like, this is here? This is in Massachusetts? I had no idea. I literally didn't know until I was driving through it. And now I make an effort to try to drive through it if I can all of the time.
To look for UFO highways or something?
I don't know. I like to put myself in there for fun. And there's a gas station that if I am going toward Boston or something, I'll be like, I kind of want to just go to the Bridgewater gas station. So I'll go out of my way to do something like that. I probably because I'm trying to find something, I'll never see anything, but you never know. But that area, it has, I think within it, I think it's like the southern border is Freetown, and then we kind of get up to it's not that big of an area of land in southeastern Mass, and it has a swamp in it that has a lot of stories about portals. There's a lot of legends about Pukwudgies, which with the Wampanoag tribe, which is the actual land that belongs to. There's legends of what. I don't think given the status of America, I don't think they have full. I would prefer that, but I don't think. But that's what a lot of the names of the area are named from, and some of the like actual folkloric legends. But there's stories of which you kind of get everywhere from different sources, different names. Not saying that they're all the same thing, but a similar idea anyway of like a small person who like causes mischief in the woods. In this case, there's stories of people seeing floating lights, not dissimilar to the will-o'-wisp, and those lights luring people like off cliffs or things like that. And supposedly the Pukwudgies are behind this, but I'm no expert on the Bridgewater Triangle. This is just what I've picked up on from proximity.
Yes, here is the is that Wikipedia? I don't like Wikipedia. I don't even want to promote it. The Bridgewater Triangle is an area of about 200 square miles within southeastern Massachusetts in the United States, claimed to be the site of alleged paranormal phenomenons ranging from UFOs to poltergeists orbs, balls of fire, and other spectral phenomenon, various Bigfoot-like sightings, giant snakes, and thunderbirds. So giant snakes or dragons seem to be kind of a part of this. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think I could be messing this up in terms of timing. I don't know if it was actually one of the first like modern documented sightings, but one of the biggest ones was a police officer who saw what they described as like a large bird man, not dissimilar to kind of like the Mothman description. But then, and he reported this, and then people, made fun of him for a very long, like still now, this is like, I don't even remember what year that happened in, but it just seems weird to me that someone would present that, or like, oh, I saw this in a position where your whole career could be destroyed so easily.
I know.
And then for that not to have for them not to have perceived something, whether it was, a psychic impression they perceived as actually standing in front of them, or they actually saw something weird. That's one of those types of accounts that stick out to me a little bit, because you do have a lot to lose if you say them.
Yes, and also people believe things if you say the police said it, and which is really weird, because yet we don't trust the police, but we think if they saw a UFO, they're suddenly all very honest. But I do
it's a little weird.
Yes, and you know what else? It does surprises me that nothing surprises me anymore. I was going to say at this day and age that they would make fun of him, but I guess people are still at that juvenile level, aren't they?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say something similar to this sentiment, but no matter how many times UFOs are disclosed, or if there's ever like concrete proof of something like Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever. I mean, we didn't out where we live in this part of North America, in like United States of America. We didn't realize gorillas were real until like the early 1900s for some reason.
Interesting.
So anything is possible. Because we're very dense. So
we're very self-centered in America. We don't even know the news that's going on around in the world. We need to know what's happening in the worst part of the city. It's interesting because it doesn't have a skin, like there was the Skinwalker Ranch. That seems to be the story behind that is about ends up being sort of two Native American tribes, one turned on the other. And I always thought, I'm not positive, but a skinwalker seems to be like a Native American demon or something that they release it's like they don't even say the name, I guess. They won't even say skinwalker. But I would say in a huge act of revenge, that's what you would call up or something. But I've never heard skinwalker as attuned to the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah, I personally haven't either. And again, it could be another, one of the big problems with paranormal, occult, spiritual communities, and why there's so much infighting, it feels like, is there's a problem of vocabulary, of people calling things different things. But also in that case, I think it would be specific to the people that are from these spaces who probably call them different things because they're not the same. But there could be similar phenomena. I don't know. I would not be surprised if there's something similar to that.
Yeah,
out in the Bridgewater Triangle, but it wouldn't be called the same thing because it's not similar biome, part of the country, land, all that,
Yeah, it always surprises me too. I'm always I can pretty much, I'm open to anything. I can believe, I try to, when someone sees something, no matter how crazy it is, because I've seen crazy things myself, I try to be open to it and sort of be maybe it turns out they were, I just try to be open to it. I try not to discourage anyone from either telling their story or being what it is, whether it was a projection or a real thing or whatever. I think we don't need to tell people it's not, but it always surprises me. I have a friend who's like, demons, all these things are real. Aliens, not real. Really? That's the line you draw right there. Everything is real except alien. Okay. All right. It just makes me laugh. But everybody has their line where they can't. My line, I think, is the Jersey Devil, but I think that the legend of it didn't seem to hold too much water, or it's like a little tiny Bigfoot or a little something. I don't know. That's the only one. But if somebody told me they saw the Jersey Devil, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll believe you. I don't want to lie. But you Are you a big Mothman fan like me, or did you just do Mothmana as your name because it fit?
I kind of both. I am not super invested in cryptid folklore as some people might be, but Mothman has always stuck out to me because I kind of like how if Mothman shows up, he kind of just transferring the responsibility onto you at this point. It's like, oh, here's Mothman. And now if you die, it's kind of your fault if you stay on the bridge. That's a joke. But, I kind of like how he's just an ominous figure that people, in terms of most of, the sightings, I can't speak to all of them because I don't know all of the sightings that have been documented, but people see them and it's like, oh my God, there's this big figure. And then they perceive some type of disaster to be associated with Mothman. I think that's just really powerful. I kind of want to be like that. If you see me, I want you to be scared.
Oh, so now I'm in trouble because I met you in person.
But,
Pardon
you should be.
That is true. Well, also I like that. It's very weird when you hear the Mothman story of Point Pleasant, which is what we're talking about, which is Mothman was like this giant bird, and some guy was digging a grave, and all of a sudden Mothman seemed to shoot out of it, and then it started this long series of things happening in Point Pleasant where it sort of took over the whole town. Like it wasn't like 4 people, it was like everybody was kind of involved, and he was supposed to be at this TNT area is what they called it, which was an old area that used to hold weapons, and it was a lot of radioactive garbage, and everybody went and they brought their guns. All the local guys went out with their guns, not a camera, but everybody went with their guns. And I was like, really? This is why people get mad at the paranormal community. But it was such a fascinating, some of the real encounters with Mothman were fascinating to me. There was one guy that went in that building, one of those abandoned buildings, and they said the thing kind of walked right up to them and just kind of looked at them and then went off. It's just like a furry, feathery thing, but it wasn't dangerous. It was just like, hey, what are you doing? And I kind of love that.
Yeah, I also like there's like people call it Birdman, Mothman. There seems to be no indistinction between an insect and a bird, which I think is kind of fun. Like we are still partially obsessed with this category, making a categorization about this mysterious giant being with red eyes and such. So I think that's kind of fun that no matter what, we are like, we have to pick a species that exists for this creature.
That's right, a thunderbird.
A well, that's the other thing, like there's some folklore from indigenous people that has a similar thing going on too. So who knows?
Who knows? He's crosses all. Mothman is open to be a harbinger of bad luck for all people. Hold on, hold on 1 second, folks. We'll be right back. Just talking paranormal stuff with my friend Mothmana. Hang on. MedicallySpeaking.com is a prophetic shop that focuses on your inner alchemical transmutation. And I needed an alchemical transmutation to say alchemical transmutation. See, Toria, you did it. When you're looking for activations to change your aura, wisdom and insight to heal your past, and alchemy to live your highest vibrancy, you will most certainly enjoy the array of offerings you will find at hermeticcallyspeaking.com. Created through the teaching of the Hermetics, Toria, who's been on my podcast many times, provides personalized guidance that caters a feast specifically from the higher realms to you. You'll leave each session feeling empowered and loved, having gained ancient knowledge for your soul's nourishment and growth. Believe me, I know. I've worked with Toria and she is terrific. Everything you need is within you. So come remember, activate, and expand your knowing at hermeticcallyspeaking.com. So when you were living in the West Coast, I used to talk to you all the time, and you introduced me to this lady. I tried to get her on my podcast, and it was very interesting. She taught an exorcism course, and it was like 18 years long, right? Something like that.
Yeah, if you're talking about Quaria, and we're referring to Josephine McCarthy, by the way, if you haven't looked Josephine up, Josephine has a very long self-taught, self-directed, at least for the first portion, textbook size course on sorcery, magic, becoming a skilled magician, essentially. And, part of that popularity has come from the success of her book called The Exorcist's Handbook, which, as she said multiple times, was never meant to be popular, but I think people are kind of into the title. And so it got to the point where it was in Barnes and Noble and such. And that was my first introduction into her work, was through my friend who introduced me to that book. I read it, and then I kind of went on to start to do some of her courses in Quaria and self-development and things. And while I have not seriously continued that course, I'm sure it's something that I will try again at some point. There are a lot of foundational practices in there that I think are really useful and that I still go back to, and that friends of mine who have taken or started the course or worked on it for a period of time have also continued to use. I have a friend who's done that course for a couple of years, and it's largely self-directed until you kind of finish the first giant book, and then you can contact her and she can be a mentor for you, but you have to get to that point. And what I like about that is, you have to trust your own experience while you take that first portion of the course. It's not just someone, gassing you up or telling you that you're doing things the right way or the wrong way, because it's about how it works for you, following a specific set of instructions. So yeah, it's called Quaria. You can find it for free online. That's kind of, I think, some, legitimacy to this to me is it's not really behind a paywall. It's only really behind a paywall if you want a physical copy, but that's because physical materials cost money. So you can buy it if you want, but you can also get it, the PDF from Josephine's Quaria website. And a lot of her other books are free too.
Is that Quaria?
I have to write it down because I have dyslexia. Hold on. Quaeria.
Quaeria. Okay, I'll get close to that. That's very interesting, but I kind of good time to bring that up, because just so you know, folks, I'm sure you heard, we have a spiritual protection class that you can pay for or is free if you want to go to my website. If you need a coupon code for it to be free, just email me and I will send it to you, because we want that information out, which makes me really I didn't remember all this about it. I remember it was a very, very long course, which I kind of loved, because I think it's like Christopher Penczak always said, if you want to be a witch and trained by me, you have about 15 books to read before we even get to spell work. So he was always making sure that, sort of dabbling wasn't happening. But this is very interesting that she has it free, because that sort of means it's for everybody. When you say she teaches you some basic things that you still use today, what are they? Are they grounding or intuition, or what's in there?
Yeah, so some of the lessons are foundational and kind of, you use the word, I liked how you said it. It was charcuterie. It's I laughed however you said charcuterie earlier, because I used to always call it charcuterie board. And so when I heard you say it, I was like, yes, I'm not the only person who can't figure this out. So
it's a weird word. And the only reason it's popular right now is because Dr. Oz made a mistake of saying that during an election where they yelled at him what a snob. No one knows what a charcuterie board is. And now it's everywhere. And mine was a charcuterie.
That is funny.
Charcuterie.
I only learned a couple years ago.
Yes,
but yes.
That's what they had at the yacht club. Paper plate charcuterie.
They did. It was accessible. I liked it. It was good. The grapes were delicious that they had.
They were. Yes, and the pretzels were not bad, but pretzels are pretzels. You don't have to work as hard. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a PDF you can download.
Yeah, it's a PDF you can download, and it starts with some practices that essentially build on itself. I think one of the first ones, or actually, is it okay? I have it next to me. If I get up for a second, I can.
Sure, I'll pause. You do your thing. I'm going to pause. I
picked it up.
We're on. I told everyone we were going to pause, but they wouldn't know if I didn't say it. I'm so honest. Okay. Yes. Tell me about it.
So these are the chapter titles. So the core skills, the first one is meditation techniques. And part of it is, it's a meditation exercises that builds on itself. And one of the things that I use a lot, because I'm not particularly a magician that loves material items, I I like them. I think that they're cool. I can use them sometimes for certain types of workings or whatever you're trying to do. It's nice to have a literal tie into this 3D reality. If you're trying to bring something, into your life in that way, it's a great thing. But I'm personally, I've always been more of a vision worker or a, astral worker, someone who doesn't really go to that. It's not kind of a natural talent, despite it being useful. And so one of the things that I really liked that I learned from Josephine's course was this meditation where you imagine a candle lit in your mind. And while you would light a candle IRL for many reasons, to get strong at doing that within your own mind space as something that, if you are a visual person or if you're a sensory person, no matter what it is, it's something that a skill that you can build, despite it sounding really simple in terms of focusing on it and focusing on that flame, is something that you kind of have to work up to. And then wherever you are, if you're in an elevator, if you're at work and work sucks, or if you're, I don't know, in the trunk of a car, I don't know, like whatever horrible scenario you're in, you can pull that back, and then focus for a second and have that level of clarity and then go from there. And that's kind of the first foundational thing.
I love
And then we move.
I'm sorry, I keep coughing. I also think you are like me, where we're just not things people. Like,
yeah, we both move around a lot too.
Yeah, I can't. It's hard to move a lot of crystals and candles and pack them up and stuff. Yes, I love what I have. I love what I have, Liz. I love my candle. But yes, I know what you're saying. This is a really good skill to take anywhere. Don't have to pack it.
Yeah. And so that's an example of something that I've come back to that's really stuck to me. And then you build on that. So you build from there, then you learn some tarot basics. And even if you are a professional tarot reader, such as, Karen or myself, that's something that it's still useful because it's practical applications. Like there's a spread in there about how you want to build a practice of routinely having a card to basically represent each part of your home. So you can check on the status of your own physical space, and then you keep documents of that, and then you move into visionary magic, such as navigating a space, going for a walk, putting yourself, your astral self, for lack of a more precise term at this point, to walk around, get your space legs on, and stretch them out, and then try to go and see things and remote view, but it's a thing that is slowly built on itself. It's not like, here, just do this exercise and that's the skill and now we're going to move on. It's all part of why it takes so long to get through, or even to kind of move through the first chapter, or the core skills chapter, is because you're every time you go to a new lesson, you're still keeping the old lessons. So you're building like a larger roster of things that you want to work on in order to continue to go forward, because there are foundational skills, so you're going to use them all the time. And then as you get deeper into the course, it's not recommended that you jump around. And so I'm not jumping around personally doing all the activities, but I do like to look. So I did look ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like chapters ahead, like literally about demons, how about spirit types, about possessions, about ritual techniques. Yeah, we got astrology basics, we've got laws of fate, death, birth, and the underworld, inner contacts, things about magical tools. And what I think is cool about all of this is Josephine's not necessarily working from a particularly specific tradition. And I think as I've gone through it and looked through it and read some other pieces of her work, it's very practical, but it's not at any point trying to convince you that any of this is real. So you kind of just have to go with it. So if you're someone who maybe is like, I'm not sure if magic's real, probably not the course for you, because Josephine doesn't care.
Right.
So that's something you have to figure out for yourself.
That's something interesting that I'm glad when people don't tackle like non-believers, or when I buy a book by a psychic that's trying to convince me first that psychic stuff is real. No, I bought the book. I'm already here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That really kind of, I don't need sometimes there's a lot of stuff in the beginning of, and the paranormal research people, no, I'm here. I got it. So this is this actually more of a magical course than just an exorcism course, or exorcism just is the final lesson?
Oh, so I'll make some distinction there. I don't know. This definitely is not, the Quaria course is not a course on exorcisms. It might touch on that a little bit, but there is a separate book that she has called The Exorcist Handbook that is more about that.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, I reached out to her, and she was, I think her website. Too, she was kind of like, she was kind of like, I'm not in the public eye or something. She was very nice to have answered it, but she seemed to be very low key. So maybe that's anyways. I always worry though when an exorcist or something like that says something. It's like the woman Rosemary that what was her name? She did all the work on the jinn. Rosemary Gooley. Everyone knows. I can't think of her name right now.
I don't know who that is.
Galili-
Everyone but me.
So I'll put it in. I'll get it really fast here. She was actually sort of the first person. She kind of became obsessed with Rosemary. Let's say vengeful Rosemary Ellen Guiley, but it's Guiley. She was sort of the first person that really, in the paranormal field, brought jinn to this attention. And she wrote book after book, and she went to the Middle East and she studied, and she really gave lectures. She was sort of like the first one. And then all of a sudden, I reached out to her and she was like, I don't talk about jinn anymore. Like it went like there was like, it feels like something happened because she cut that off so fast. So I worried a little when I reached out to that other lady. I hope it was just like, she was like, no, I'm over it. But I don't like when people exit like that. I always feel like, I hope nothing happened.
Yeah, I know she has made statements. Has some level of relationship with a friend of mine who hosts a different podcast. From time to time, she'll come on there, but that's kind of the only one that she'll do. And she, I think, is just really pulling back. And part of it is she's talked about The Exorcist Handbook's popularity before. She did not think that it was going to become as popular as it was. She thought that it was going to be, for people who are doing that type of work and who are already at that level of skill. And then it got more of a popular culture attention. And I think between that and herself, the amount of, energy and life force it probably takes to do work like that for a period of time, I'm not surprised that
I would say that's exactly what I would say. Yeah. In fact, I know even my friend Tommy, he stepped way back, which is kind of like why people come to me. They go to me and then I go to him. There's something about, and there was a certain point where I do know the people that were really into the demonic side of the paranormal all backed off. There was just a bunch of them started to die. Of course, all of the same thing of like stomach cancer, liver cancer. It was always in the stomach, which is the frequency that gets ill when you're around that. So I can also see, yes, she might just be tired or like over it in an energetic way, But I think I didn't read this book. It is probably very handy, isn't it? I mean, like it's not a way out there weirdo book. It's like a real book, right?
Yeah, it's you can find it like pretty much anywhere you find books, to be honest. I think my friend literally found it like on the shelf in a physical Barnes and Noble at one point. Wow. And I from reading it, there's things in there because it's a lot of it is, again, she's not trying to convince you of anything. She's telling you it's very like personal gnosis, her experience. So I'm sure that there are many other exorcists out there who wouldn't go about things that way. But she explains things like here's like the different types of hauntings, different types of possessions. And even if you're someone who's not interested in doing any exorcist work or not super into that as maybe you're not sure how you feel about it being a legitimate thing, it offers a different perspective because I think it's interesting when people categorize beings or experiences as like case studies from their own life in a way that you never would have think before. So there's things like there's the concept of a bound angel that I'd never, when I first read it, which was in 2020, I'd never thought of before, like how someone could, a very skilled magician could essentially bind an angel and then have the angel do actions against kind of their own will by order of the magician. But if you think more about, Goetia or Solomonic magic or, as I learn more, I'm like, okay, well, this is not that weird of a thing. But the way, like at the time and at and the way she explained it, it's a different perspective. It's interesting, even if it's something that you're not super into yourself. So I think it's a really good read. It's not super long. I did have a really weird experience when I read it, which several years have passed and it still sticks out. There was a chapter because Josephine is very big on you don't want to keep
your
faces or your attention. You don't want to write down physical descriptions of these beings. You don't want to have drawings. You want to get rid of them. All these things. You don't want to have anything they could essentially manifest out of. That's something that she feels like is a powerful thing that could happen. And I remember I was reading a section of this book that was describing that. And it wasn't like I'd read it before in the book and I'd thought about it. I was reading it as it happened. And as she was talking about, you don't want to read descriptions of these beings, I then went on to the part of the book where she was describing an example of an exorcism and a being and everything. And I kid you not, I experienced in my lower abdomen like a pop. Mm-hmm. And The closest thing that I could probably attribute it to is if I had like an ovarian cyst burst. So if anyone knows that experience, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But I'd never had that happen before, and I've never had it since. And it's been 3 years where it was like this pain, and then it swelled up in my low back, and then I couldn't get up. And so I at the time I was living with some housemates. I was down in the basement, and I had to actually text them and be like, I don't know what just happened to me. I am like in the worst pain like I've ever experienced. And it's just like every time I move, it gets worse. And it was so weird. And then I had like swelling in my low back. And, I'm someone who has a pretty decent pain tolerance. And that was like I think that there's a difference. Like if you experience something that's painful, but it's not causing more harm to you, like if you're getting a tattoo or something, it doesn't really register as like I'm in danger, Mm-hmm. But so it's a different level of tolerance. But this is one of those times where I had this bizarre pain while I'm reading this book that essentially told me this would happen to some way. And then I'm having physical, it's not like a phantom pain. It was an actual thing that my housemates could feel in my back. And then it took a couple of days for it to stop being so sore. It was very weird, very weird. And again, I've never had that happen since.
That's very interesting because Christopher Macklin always says that things attach on the L4 or L5 of the spine, which I think would be is that where it was with you? Right at the bottom, right above the sacral?
Yeah, it was like right above the sacral, but off to the right.
Okay.
So like kind of over... I'm making a motion that no one can see.
It's all kind of that area. And, that Tommy, after investigation or something that's bad, we get rid of all the evidence. We don't keep anything. If it's a fooling around, there was a weird sound in this, but we're fine. But the ones that are really bad, I get rid of everything, pictures and all, for that reason. In fact, it's funny because I saw there was once this tarot deck that was about the seals of the angels and then the seals of the demons. The real actual, I think he thought, I don't know if they were the real seals. Tommy is really good about always saying, some of these new younger people are using seals they don't know. These are not the ancient real seals of Archangel Michael and stuff like that. And I said to him, I was like, what do you think of this? And he was like, it's probably nothing, but I wouldn't have that around my house because you don't want those seals calling those things in. So I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I will say too, the I don't really have a particular focus. Like I don't have my magical practice isn't demon focused by any means. And so
hopefully not. Right.
And so it's interesting because the other notable time where something has happened was I actually interviewed someone about their possession experience where they believed that they had been possessed by a demon, and they were describing the exorcism process and like what they went through, and whether or not anyone agrees with whatever it's being labeled as, it sounded horrible. Like the time that they were having, like this person had a really rough time, very sick, physically ill. You know, a doctor is noticing this, and we talked to the whole interview, and we had a hard time getting internet connection for like 2 times we tried to record it beforehand. Like, it was super crazy lag, and that's not too big of a problem that normally happens. And then afterward, when I downloaded the file, it was completely corrupted. It sounded like awful. It was like weird screeching, like chopped up audio, like completely scrubbing sounds after the first couple of minutes. And I re-downloaded it a couple of times. And what was weird is every time I would download it, it would be corrupted, but it wouldn't sound the same. You know, it wasn't like the same level of, like, I couldn't put the audio tracks of the screeching and the squealing and scrubbing sounds and have it be the same. It was different every time that I downloaded it. I've podcasted. I'm over 3 years now. And I'm, you know, between when I did Patreon and when I did the podcast week by week, I probably recorded of my own editing over 100 episodes at this point. That's the only time that's ever happened.
Yeah. When I do, it kind of depends on the one, but I did the New York demon investigators who help people of all their good. But it was, of course, certainly people got very nervous. Folks, don't get nervous. I'm in tune with my frequency. I know I'm surrounded by tons of magical people. Don't send me a warning. It's okay. I'm constantly getting warnings. That particular episode, I can't remember if it was hard to upload or something like that. It was, yes, it took all morning, and I texted him and I was like, yeah, your friends are here. And he's like, it always happens. And then every once in a while I'll get an email from someone. Are you going to get, you know, yes, I know. It's just there's always an appearance that could be made. Hold on one second, folks. We will be right back.
Incoming transmission.
Greetings, intergalactic campers. We are here to notify you of an auspicious cosmic event occurring at Starstruck Farm, Lebanon, Tennessee, August 17th to 20th of Earth Year 2023. Humans have labeled this event Hot Alien Summer Camp, and forces across the multiverse are confirmed to be an unparalleled community convergence phenomenon. Expect to experience sound baths, energetic exchanges, metaphysical vendors and practitioners, yoga, live music, Reiki, and comedy performances by karenrontowski and Ryan Singer, and most importantly, restful, enriching connection with your fellow aliens. Hot Alien Summer Camp, where cosmic forces align for an unforgettable adventure. Go to hotaliensummercamp.com to book your tickets and let the magic unfold.
Transmission complete.
You know, it is interesting, and that is like where you keep your attention. I did have to dump one podcast that I taped with 2 friends that was about her sister was possessed. And sure enough, as I'm taping the podcast, the sister's not even in it. And I'm like, this is a bad idea. What are you doing? And sure enough, that night, all night, just getting choked, and woke up and, you know, fixed it. Don't worry, folks. Everything's fine over here. I think people get this frequency that something's wrong, and it's literally the house I'm in. But you always can pick up that. That's really interesting that I bet when that person talks about that thing, it sort of hears them.
Probably. And I actually interviewed recently, and by the time this interview comes out, this will already be up on my show for a while, but I interviewed someone who is a very experienced, several decades worth of experience, Solomonic magic practitioner, goetic magic practitioner, and we talked a little bit about demons, and then like our internet connection dropped. Mm-hmm. like during the sentence, and I was like, oh, okay, well.
Yes. And you know what? I have a theory about that. And I think it's right now, it's like the other story you told me about the person that had that experience, that makes total sense. But now it does seem like you can tap onto this topic, and it's almost immediate that something, whether it is what you're talking about or not, it's almost like, this is what I think. I think evil is a little bit on the rise right now, but it's almost more like a trapped animal. It's kind of fighting with all its might to get at us. I don't know if I'm getting too cryptic but I do feel like evil in the world right now is kind of rising, but it's not because it's taking over. It's almost because the sunlight is on it right now. So it's fighting harder. So the smallest sort of like, hey, let's talk about this. All of a sudden your internet's going to go.
Yeah, that is an interesting take on that. I haven't really theorized for myself, but it is something that is it's strange and almost guaranteed that I've found when I talk about things like that, or if I get real specific about it, or if they're thinking about, specific spirits, I'm sure that's probably part of what's going on. But from Josephine McCarthy's personal tips and tricks, one thing that I do keep is I keep less faces around. I don't really like, physical descriptions of things, and I'm a little bit careful. I actually have in the Exorcist Handbook, there's a deck you can make by yourself with paper about how to diagnose possessions and things like that. And I just keep that deck, which I've used on stuff before and people have had problems. I keep it in a bag of salt in a box I don't open.
Ah, that's funny. Yeah, I think when you do that, you have to make that decision. Am I going to step into this or am I not? Like there's a certain level of the paranormal that I will step into. And then there's a certain level where it's like, we've had to let a couple of people go, like people that weren't ready to let go of their attachments, or you know what I mean? Or sometimes it's the house. I feel like this house that I'm in, and this could be a East Coast thing because we both know it's very different than the West Coast. I feel like either I'm in a portal or something where these things can manifest very fast, where I didn't feel that in LA. Like I feel like you're right. And that's also why I'm not anti-Ouija board, like the Ouija board is evil, but I promise you never know the people you're with, what they're bringing to the table when you sit down with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say too about New England, and absolutely no offense to, New Englanders who have grown up and lived here all their lives, but as Karen and I are both two people that aren't from here. You are from here.
Yeah, but haven't been here forever.
But you've been away for a while.
Right.
But when I moved here and my experience around, it's like it sometimes just feels like a tar pit energetically.
Yes. Yeah. And and obviously the people that live here have learned to move through it as we have. But I'll tell you, even though I'm up where it's gray, like today's the first sun we've had in months. And even that is just heavy. And even looking at the sun, it feels heavy. So yeah, I agree with you. It's almost like there's more layers of history, which leaves layers of ghosts, which leaves layers of other dimensions or something. But it is kind of, I feel like you can manifest or grab things faster here. And it also feels very, I just interviewed this money astrologer, and she was saying how we're moving out of an age that was very water and earth and into an age that's air and fire, which is sort of lighter, and which makes sense with the ascension. But if you ask me, the East Coast is very earth water energy. It's so I don't know, like the gravitational pull is heavier or something. I know that. Excuse me.
I feel like part of the heaviness too is, this is where the colonialism started, for this continent. It's like right here. It's very close to me, just where people just got here and decided that they were going to take the land. So I think that's definitely part of it too.
I know exactly what you're saying.
And everything.
Yes. And we're trying not to say that in a bad way, but we were bad people.
Yeah.
There's my teacher used to always talk about that with the world card. The world card can be your country's karma. And that was kind of the first time I ever heard years ago when she told me you should have your karma, you have your family's karma, you have your neighborhood's karma, you have your city karma, all that stuff, all the way to world karma. And, the United States, not the people, but our government has been allowed to do a lot of awful things. Obviously, you and I weren't there when they landed, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
So it's a hard reality. And Of course, everyone wants to wave a flag, but and I think a lot of anyways, why am I off on political patriotic stuff? We think we're doing good as people, but I don't know if that's true. So are you still doing tarot readings?
I am. Yes, I do offer tarot readings. I offer phone call sessions and also recorded readings if you just want a quick fire answer. And I also have been doing some events. I don't have any events booked right now, but I do sometimes hang out at Witches Night Out Market in Providence, RI, which is a really amazing market if you're in New England. And then last year I did some readings up in Salem at a shop. And who knows what this year shall bring, but yeah. I am kind of doing that a little bit more. But if you want a private session, which are the most optimal, as I'm sure Karen can attest to, if you have your own space with someone for a longer than 15 minutes, you're going to get more out of it. So I do offer those, which you can find on my website at mothmana.com. And I also have a podcast, The Real Witches of the End Times, which is you can find links to on my website as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that has the best logo. Did you do the logo? I just love the logo.
No, I did not do the logo, but my friend Shareya did. And you can find her at ink.stasi on Instagram. She does a lot of like paranormal pinups or haunted or occult looking like pinup doll logos. And she did my Mothmana logo and she did my podcast logo. She is amazing. And she's actually been on my podcast too. I talked to her.
Okay. You got to give me that one too. You know what? I jumped ahead of something because I keep turning my head to cough, so I lose my place. Faces on things. That was what caught my attention, I think, at the break or something like that. So I only have one doll. And I had it since I was a kid, and it was the Emerald doll, and it has green eyes. Pardon me, everyone, if I'm repeating my stories. It had green eyes that would light up when you shook it. And you can have all the Barbies in the world. This was my doll. It was a little witch. She was purple. When people look her up now, they're like, ugh. But I was like, no, this was my doll. This was my girl. And I always carry, for someone that like you, I might move flying and move, so all I move with is what fits in the plane that I'm going in. And she made it with me to college, and she made it with me to Vegas, and then I drove from Vegas to San Diego, and she didn't make it to San Diego. And then I moved home later that year, and my parents were moving out of their house, and my mother goes, I found this in the attic. Do you still want it? And there she was. So I still have her with me. I might be a little afraid to let her go. No, I'm not. But that is the only kind of thing I have with faces. Is that explain to me what that feels, what that is about that, because I know dolls to me look like humans, like we're faking a human, so that is kind of weird.
Yeah, I think to different people it's going to be different things. For me, I'm someone who I try to think like 3 steps ahead, and part of that is I look at the company I keep a little bit, and I'm like, these people, are very skilled, but also I don't know what they're capable of. And so one of the things that I just personally try to be aware of is mirrors and faces. So if you can come through a mirror as a portal, you could also essentially look through the eyes of something else in someone's home and see into their home. That's the thing people can do. It's something you'd have to train. I really hope I'm not giving anyone ideas. But also, I don't know. It's one of those things that's like, if you know about it, you know about it, so you can prevent it. But also, be smart if you're going to try to do something like that, because some people will be able to tell if you're trying to look at them through the pictures on their walls. But yes, I try not to have any like faces or things that are facing, we're most vulnerable in our sleep. I try to keep mirrors away from that, cover mirrors up. I don't have that many of them anyway. And then beware of faces, and not even just like pictures, but drawings of faces, drawings of eyes. I often think of, if anyone's seen SpongeBob, like the Doodle Bob episode where SpongeBob draws himself and then Doodle Bob peels himself off the page and then impersonates him and essentially, kill your double. Tries to kill SpongeBob. So
you know what?
But yeah, kind of like binoculars.
It's very funny because I am definitely that way, and with mirrors not facing mirrors. And I have a friend that at one point was like, no, it's good mirrors facing mirrors. It's the Chinese have something where it's protection. And I was like, I don't think so. It's almost funny how I do wonder how much AI and just the spirit are going to emerge. I almost bought this thing on TikTok, and then I was like, nah, I don't even know if I care about finding cameras in hotel rooms, because I've always said that eventually we're all going to end up naked on the internet. I have used every bathroom on the 5 all the way up and down all the way up and down California, driving back and forth to gigs. And I fully am understanding that there's probably some idiot with a camera in one of those. So I don't even know if we can start looking for cameras. I know how to tell if the mirror is not a mirror, if it's a two-way. But that's very interesting that people can see through eyes and pictures. I didn't know that. Boy, this is a good learning thing. So I'm glad you said it, not for people to do it, but to know that it can be done.
Yeah. So it's something to consider. So I think, you're going to have faces in your house for the most part. It happens. Pictures, I just think about where they are, or if I'm feeling particularly exposed at a certain point, or if I have a lot of attention on myself, I'll just cover them up. So
yeah, that's a good tip there. That's interesting. I know, I don't know much about the type of magic that you said. What did you call that kind of magic?
This specific?
Yes, the one you were just talking about. It began with an S.
Oh, so Solomonic magic. Yeah, the mirror thing's not part like specific to that, but that's more of with the Key of Solomon and demonic magic.
Yes, and there's a guy that wrote a lot of books that people are very into. His name is Damien, just by chance, and he started learning in prison, and he's very good. I don't think he's dark magic, but I started it, and then I was like, this one isn't for me. This one isn't. I actually like where your other lady is starting. That seems more, I'm not a magic practitioner, but I am always open to having the information if it's not going to instigate anything. So I like where that other lady is starting. Did you ever read the book with John Dee?
No, I haven't. Are you talking about the Book of Enoch?
No. It's called Enochian Magic. Yeah,
so I haven't read that book. I know exactly what you're talking about, though, but it's not one I've read cover to cover, and that is about a different type of angel magic. And Enochian angels are not necessarily like biblical angels. They're weirder.
Yes.
I don't really know how to describe it.
And that book, it's a hard read because some of it is, from long time ago, but it is very interesting how you have to read a little at a time. You have to chew on a little at a time. But it is interesting we're brought up with this, like, there's good angels and then there's demons, and those are fallen angels, and they're going to help you out and blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of learn a couple of things, which is, first of all, they don't work for us. I find that very interesting that anyone would even, I hate to say this, have the ego to bind an angel. That sounds like bad karma, right?
I think if you're going to go that route, you just got to be skilled and prepared.
Yes.
If that's what you decide to do. That's all I'll say on that.
I don't want to bind anything. I don't even want to bind my sandwich together too tight unless I want to put chips in later. You know what I mean? Like it's like I saw some woman, and this is the thing. This woman's on TikTok and she's like, had me teach you how to make a servitor, which is already bad. A servitor, that's the thing that the demon will send in first to cause chaos in the home, to get the energy right for the bigger thing to come in. And she was like, you could create your own servitor. And I was like, this sounds like a terrible idea, especially to be doing for like 13-year-olds on Witch Talk. And, but I guess I have always been taught caution, or I've learned caution maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm not on TikTok, so I hear stories. I feel like just, a quick 1 minute or whatever, however long TikTok lets you make videos is probably not the best way to teach most magic at all. I feel like I think it just depends on your practice. So like what system you're operating in I feel like a lot of things for servitors with certain systems, there's going to be, I think, context where someone might do something like that, and it would make sense. But I think if you're just deciding like out of the blue, you're not really studying anything, you're just like, I'm just going to try to do this specific thing because I saw a video on the internet. Probably not wise from anything from building a servitor to like
Building
using a nail
shed.
gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but I feel like I'm more explorative with practices in that way. But I feel like it depends on what you're willing to. If you're willing to deal with it, then who am I to discourage? But.
Right. Well, also, you're like me. If I'm in for the long haul, especially magic, I'm still very torn. All my friends are witches, and I'm still very torn. Like, am I in this category or am I not? I don't do anything other than most of the things that I want in life come from working hard. So I think that's my magic. But it is always interesting to see from start to finish. If you're going to have a practice, know it. Like Angela Lovell is like, she knows levels of that stuff that I can't even begin to tell you, when, all kinds of stuff. So I think I do want to take a look at this book, even if it's just for information. It's so funny because when I work with Tommy has read so many books and knows so many different things that when I come to him with like, this is going on, someone sent me this email, this bank of information, he just has like, it's amazing. And he's like, well, it sounds like they were doing this, this, and this. And of course, he's almost 99.9% of the time, he's exactly dead on. So to have the information is really interesting. And we are at time, Mana. This was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's always nice just to, chit chat and have kind of just an explorative conversation about weird stuff.
Yeah, we had no agenda and it went fantastic.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any demons throw us off the internet.
No, and I think, again, it's the day after the eclipse. It's super nice and sunny out. I'm just feeling better. I'm feeling a little bit better. Past 2 weeks sucked ass, but it's feeling better today. That's how I'm going with that.
I am with you on that. I think I might still be in the suck ass part, but I'm going to go and sit in the park and write, and maybe that'll get me out of it. So always a pleasure, my friend. Tell everyone where to find your podcast, your readings, your whatever.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, and you'll find me, Twitter, Instagram, my website. You can find all links to that and the podcast on my website, mothmana.com. And you also can see a gallery of my digital art. I don't do spirit portraits anymore as a service, but I do leave those up for people to look at. You can find information on readings as well, when I'm available. And you can always email me if you've got something weird going on. I like to hear about it. And my podcast is called The Real Witches of the End Times. And you can find that pretty much where most major podcasts are. And again, you can find a link to that on my website.
Well, thank you. And thank you to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Thank you, everybody. Join the Patreon. Get on my email list at karenrontowski.com. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen. She's an angel without wings. Comedian, ghost hunter, conscious exploring. She's a funny gal and a real woo pal. She's Paranormal Karen.